Hello you lovely lot and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mahsa and I'm an actor, a handmade business owner, YouTuber and an all-around creative who is very much sick of the struggling artist narrative. So I'm on a mission to live my best life and prove that you can be a creative and still live a stable and happy life and achieve everything that you want to achieve in life. So if that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, then hit the subscribe button below and we can try and figure out this whole adulting thing together. So for those of you that don't know, I have a wax melt business that I set up a little while ago, and at the minute it's not doing so good. And I think that's because when I was first starting out, I made some really stupid mistakes, I think. Or maybe not stupid, I just made mistakes because I didn't know any better at the time and I think I panicked and got a little bit overwhelmed. So I'm making this video of all of the things that I would have done differently if I was starting my wax melt business here now in 2023, so that it can help anyone out there who is thinking of either starting a wax melt business or just even any other handmade business. It might be worth watching and hopefully it can help you guys so that you avoid some of these mistakes that I made. So we're going to jump right in with the first thing that I wish I'd done differently, and that is to start posting the process before I'm ready to sell. And what I mean by that is that I wish I had posted more of the behind the scenes of what I was doing. So whether that was designing stickers or whether that was making the wax melts or doing any of the behind the scenes stuff of setting up my business and getting ready to launch, I wish I'd posted all of that prior to it so that there would have been more content for people to engage with, people would have been more interested before I'd launched, rather than me just showing up one day and being like, I'm launching a business now, so please buy my stuff. I think it would have created more interest and made it so that people were already somewhat aware and interested in the brand, so that when I did launch, it would have gone better. The second thing that I wish I'd done differently would have been to start selling either on Instagram or on Etsy before I started my own website. Now, that might be a little bit controversial, but hear me out here. So I think having your own website, it is a monthly cost that you have to pay. And if you're not making enough sales to go along with that cost, then you're going to be losing money. And with Etsy, it's already a marketplace. People are already going there to find small businesses. People are already going there with an intention to purchase items. So it would have been a better idea, in my opinion, to start somewhere like Etsy, where it already has its own marketplace, where it already has people who go there to purchase items. So you're more likely to get discovered there. And then once you've scaled up and once you've got consistent income, then you can look into getting your own website, for example. Or I've even seen people selling on Instagram where they'll just say, DM me if you want to order anything, and they will do everything through PayPal, get paid that way, and then send the items on that way. I do believe there is still some sort of fee if you are using PayPal in that way, but I think it's still less than if you had to have like listing fees on Etsy, for example, or if you've got your monthly bill of your website. I think it would still work out better if you started out small and then scaled your way up to having your own website when you've got more of an audience. I'm trying to do these in as much of an order as I can, but they're possibly going to be like a little bit all over the place, so just bear with me. The next thing that I would have done differently is packaging. So when I was first starting out, I spent a lot of money on packaging because I thought that packaging is so important. I want people to be excited when they receive the orders, yada, 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 which, yes, packaging is super important. It's part of the entire product that your customer is receiving. However, When you are first starting out and your resources are limited, you don't need to be spending obscene amounts of money trying to get personalized packaging and going super overboard with your packaging, when something simple and straightforward would be just as effective. It would save you loads of money, and putting on some final little touches or making some tiny personalizations yourself would be a much better alternative and a use of your resources. So where I spent a lot of money on getting stickers to go on top of my boxes or for the packaging itself when I'm posting it out, I got a lot of stickers that said things like happy post or made with love or handmade with care or those sorts of things. So instead of doing that, I could have just gotten a little stamp, for example. I could have stamped my logo onto everything myself, which would have saved me a lot of money in the long run. And also it would have meant that I had more money left over to invest into actual business things that I needed for my products to make my products better. And then once I had the income, obviously, yes, then I would have loved to get personalized packaging and get everything like printed to the way that I wanted it. But up until that point, I didn't need crazy packaging and I could have just kept it very, very simple. This leads me nicely onto my next thing that I wish I'd done differently, and that is supplies. When I was first starting out my wax melt business, I had it in my head that I was gonna make an obscene amount of sales. Don't know where I got that in my head from, but I had it in my head that I was going to make an obscene amount of sales and that I also was going to end up making more of a profit if I got my supplies cheaper. And the way that I went about getting cheaper supplies was to buy them in bigger quantities, so that it would bring the actual price of them down a little bit. This was a terrible idea. If I could go back and speak to past Mahsa, I would sit her down and be like, what are you possibly thinking with this? You don't know what's going to sell. You don't know what scents are going to be popular. You don't know what's going to work for you, what isn't. When you're first starting out, maybe you shouldn't buy an absolute crazy amount of packaging, because you don't know how many orders you're going to have. You don't know what kind of packaging is going to work best for your products. So I bought a lot of boxes, for example, that are kind of a little bit useless to me. And I ended up wasting a lot of money on things like that now I have to sort of figure out, how can I use this thing? How can I make sure that it doesn't go to waste and the money that I spent on it isn't completely wasted, essentially? So in my opinion, it would have been a much, much better idea for me to get enough supplies for the things that I needed, but keep a very close eye on them. That way I could see what scents are selling more and then maybe purchase more of that scent, and not so much of the scents that aren't selling. Keep a close eye on your supplies, keep a close eye on your inventory, and then figure out what works best for you and your business and buy more of those things so that you don't spend your money on things that you don't really actually need. The sixth thing? I think we're on to six. The sixth thing that I wish I had done differently would have been to make my items to order. I make wax melts. We've established this. I needed to make a certain number of wax melts so that I could do the photography for them and put them on the website, put them wherever it was that I was selling them. So I had to make a certain amount of snap bars, let's say, to do the photography. Once those snap bars had sold out, I wish that I would have then made the products to order. So have the scents in, have the colours in, have your wax in, and if someone places an order, then make the item and then ship it out. Rather than if something sells out, then me making 10 more of the item, 10 more snap bars, 5 more snap bars, however many I was doing at the time, making that and then being like, oh, actually, this is now not selling, people don't want it anymore, and I'm left with all these snap bars, all of these wax melts, because people just don't want them anymore and they're just sitting there. Rather than if I had the supplies or if I had the raw wax, then I could do something else with the wax that people are actually interested in buying. The next thing that I wish I had done differently is to start doing in-person markets earlier. Now, I realized that I set up my business towards the end of 2020, I think it was. So we were very much still in like pandemic mode. But even once the pandemic stuff was starting to ease up and people were doing more like outdoor markets, let's say, things like that, I wish that I had started to do in-person markets a lot earlier. And I think that's because you get to really build a relationship with your customers. I worked in retail for many a year, so I think I'm pretty good at just kind of like talking to a customer, figuring out what they want, what they need, and trying to help them out that way. Whereas I think on the website, it's quite impersonal, especially with something like wax melts, where it's very much scent based. So how is someone going to figure out if they love a smell or if they don't love a smell when they can't actually smell things? You can describe them as much as you want, but unless that person is already familiar with that scent, like if it's a popular scent or if it's a dupe of something, unless that person is already very familiar with that scent, then they're kind of going to be guessing and trying to figure out like, oh, do these smells that are mentioned here, like how would that work together? What would that smell like? Whereas if they can just pick them up and smell them in person, I think people are a lot more inclined to actually make the purchase. And also, you're standing right there. They might be more inclined to be like, do you know what? I'll support this person who's been standing out here in the freezing cold for hours and hours and hours without any sales. Pity sales are still sales. I will stand by that forever. The next thing that I wish I had done differently would have been to start email marketing right at the beginning when I first started. I say this as someone who is only just trying to figure out this whole email marketing stuff right now. I know I've left it really, really late, and I know that that was a giant mistake that I made. Speaking of giant mistakes, I've made a video covering a lot of the mistakes that I made when I was setting up this business. If you guys want to watch it, I will link it up here for you all. It's kind of a laugh. It's hilarious how many mistakes I made, and that's not even including all the things that I wish I had done differently. Anyway, back to this. Email marketing is such a hugely important part of running a business. It puts you in direct contact with customers who have said, yes, I am interested in this brand, I am interested in this product, and who have actively given you permission to contact them with regards to anything that you might be doing with your brand or any upcoming releases and sales and things like that. These are people that want to hear from you. So the more you build up that base, the more you build up that email list, the more likely you are that people will actually click on the things in that email list, come to your website and actually make a sale. What I wish I had done differently with regards to social media is kind of two things actually. I wish I had posted more regularly, which I think is something that we can all sort of relate to. It's difficult to keep the motivation to post regularly when your engagement and your following is actually still quite small. But I think you have to push past it. I think you have to just keep going at it. And hindsight is 2020. I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd posted regularly. I wish I'd gone past it and just done the thing without caring about likes and engagement and things like that. This social media point is much longer than I thought it would be, but I also wish I had recycled my content. And by that, I mean making videos that you are going to post on TikTok. There is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't then also post that content as a reel or post it onto YouTube Shorts. You already have the content. You've done the difficult part of making the content. So why wouldn't you get it out on as many channels as possible? I know a lot of people who don't have TikTok, but will sit there and scroll YouTube Shorts or will sit there and scroll through Instagram Reels for hours and hours and hours. You never know where the content is going to actually find a potential customer. So I wish I had actually done the hard work of creating the content, yes, But also when I did that, I would just post it onto TikTok, or I would just post it onto Instagram, when in reality I should have been posting it to multiple different channels. The last 2 points are possibly the most annoying, difficult things that I wish I'd done differently. Money seems to always be a difficult subject for people to talk about and get their heads around, but they both link to money, and it's such an important topic and such an important thing to get very comfortable with very quickly if you are thinking of starting your own business. I think we're on to number 9 or number 10, I don't know, but the thing I wish I'd done differently would have been my pricing. When I was first starting out, my pricing was all over the place. I don't think I was pricing things correctly. I was very, very concerned with how other people were pricing things around me and how other people that sold similar items were pricing things, rather than trying to price things in a way that worked for me, in a way that was sustainable for me, because I don't think I was making a profit. And honestly, I'm a little bit too scared to go back and try and figure out, like, was my pricing making me a profit? Because I know I wasn't. My first year of business, I made a giant loss, but we'll come back to that. So figuring out your pricing is so, so important. Not only that, you need to make sure that you're actually paying yourself. Like, I think that is such an important part of running a business. Yes, making sure that all of your costs are covered and all of your overhead is covered is hugely important, but you need to be paying yourself. You're essentially an employee of your own business. You need to be getting something out of it, otherwise what is the point? But that's my personal opinion, and maybe many years of trying to make this business work have made me a tad bitter. But pay yourself, it's important. And the last thing that I wish I had done differently is maybe a little bit more difficult to sort of wrap my head around, because it means going into something that you're very excited about, like opening a new business, with a slightly realistic view, which is something that I'm not great at. I am a dreamer at heart. I'm like, everything's going to work out, everything's going to be great, and I sometimes don't plan for the contingencies where, okay, but what if things aren't great? So I wish that I had set myself a budget of, here is how much of my money and my savings I am going to invest into this business. So I spent what was almost all of the savings that I had at the time on this business, and it breaks my heart because I didn't get that money back. That money has kind of gone into the ether of capitalism, I guess. I didn't get that money back. This business hasn't made me that money back, so I've essentially made a loss. And I think it's something that we need to be very realistic about. Like, what is the amount of money that I am willing to spend on this business without seeing any return? You need to come up with that before you begin, and then budget according to how much you're willing to spend before you see a profit. I think I very much got sucked into the whole you need to spend money to make money ethos, which is true to an extent, but not so much so that you spend a huge amount of your savings in the middle of a pandemic and then get nothing back in return. So I really wish that I had come up with that budget and then planned accordingly. So they are all of the things that I wish I had done differently when I was first starting out my wax melt business. I really hope that this helps someone out there who is thinking of starting either a wax melt business or just a handmade business in general in this day and age in 2023. I hope it helps you. I am always willing to put my not so great choices out on the internet so that it can maybe help someone avoid making these same mistakes. If you like this video, make sure you give it a big ol' thumbs up. Have you made any of the mistakes that I mentioned? If so, drop them down below. Or did you make a mistake that I somehow managed to not make? If so, leave that down below as well, because I'd be super interested if somehow I managed to do something right throughout this process. Thank you so much for watching again. Make sure you hit the subscribe button for more videos like this and for me trying to figure out how to be a creative and actually make a living and do this whole adulting thing. And I will see you guys soon for another video. Bye!